We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Right. Welcome and how exciting. So glad to be here and thank you everybody for coming. Um, Today's talk is called Releasing the Manacles of Self. And it's talking about fetters. And fetters are manacles, chains, handcuffs. So in Buddhism's fetters are manacles or chains that of identity that cause suffering. As these fetters about identity, these chains about I, me, self are broken, the sense of me falls away. And as the me falls away, there is an acceptance of what is. And we've been really working a lot with that in Awakening Together, accepting what is. So the struggle against the world ceases, and there's a deeper exploration of what truly is. So again, thank you for coming. And I'm going to invite Marisol right now to go ahead and play We Are Awakening. It's our opening greeting written specifically for us. All right. So actually, we're going to go ahead and do the statement of purpose. Our statement of purpose is that we are an assembly of equals joined in a common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And today, our talk and our reading is going to be on the core value 5. We accept all forms as temporary appearances permitted through enduring awareness of self. We live this value by honoring all appearances and all experiences while continually reflecting on a changeless truth. And that is looking at that illusion of I. So we are going to move into our announcements, and I am doing our first announcement. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, Marisol. You know, there's so many great opportunities to become involved. So if you want to do the retreat, if you want to teach in the sanctuary, listen to Rosemary, or participate in the Sounds of Awakening, or even the movies, and helping with that, there's just so many opportunities. So listen to inner wisdom and move from within. So our opening song today, it is Keith Urban's uh, Talk About Me. And it's a really fun song. And it's it's a parody. He's kind of, looking at somebody else saying, all you do is talk about you. And I just want to talk about me, 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 me. And I kind of see this as, you know what? All we do is talk about the small s self, which is the first fetter, which we're going to be breaking. And that's this you. All we do is talk about you, 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 you. I want to talk about me, me, me. And then the me, me, me can be almost seen as the big S self in a fun way. It is a very fun song. But in the eighth fetter, even the me, 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 even the big S self falls away. So enjoy the song, bebop along with it, and we'll come back in a few minutes, Marisol. Isn't that the truth? I want to talk about me. And then we're talking about everything else. Oh, I love it. Uh, so let's just settle in, open up, find that place of peace, of stillness, of beingness, the place of no self, no me, no I. May the words today come from the place of truth. To touch all places of truth. May deepening be prevalent. May the fetters or shackles that prevent deepening fall away as we awaken together. So our reading today, Corinne is going to read, and thank you so much for agreeing to read. It comes from Kevin Shenelick's simplythescene.com. So Kevin has been interviewed with Angela DeLullo about fetters, and he has a huge webpage called Simply the Scene. And in Gentle Healing 3, we're going through this. So the introduction for simplythescene.com was 38 pages long. We went ahead and condensed it into 2. So this reading is chock full of just richness and deepness. So this is the introduction from Kevin Shenelick's Simply the Scene, condensed from 38 pages down into 2, and very, very grateful for Corinne.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Can you hear me, everyone? Yes? Okay, thank you. Awakening is revealed when we no longer imagine or hope that there is another version of what is simply happening now, and see that there is no one that could do so. I gained a foothold one day while meditating when I thought to look for the self that was meditating. After perhaps 10 to 15 minutes of looking everywhere, but not finding it finally sunk in. There wasn't such a self. Immediately, there was what might be called a paradigm shift. The belief in there being a doer or experiencer was gone, because it had been seen clearly enough that there actually was no such thing. Among all that was seen, there was simply no self. Eventually, all sense of me fell away, as well as the beliefs that led to a sense of me. It was while walking to work one morning that the final belief, having to do with the unrealistic expectation that what happens should become reliable and predictable, finally fell away. I immediately knew that there wasn't anything more that I had to see or to see through, because for the first time in my life, there was nothing wrong with what was happening. As a result, the struggles I had with life and the frustration, fear, and longing I assumed would be my lifetime companions suddenly disappeared. In other words, there was no longer any suffering, regardless of what was happening. Simply the Scene. One of the most direct and profound teachings in the Buddhist tradition on the basic experience of awakening is the teaching that the Buddha gave to a monk named Bahiya. The main portion of the teaching can be translated as, Bahiya, this is what you will realize. In the scene, there will be simply the scene. In the heard, there will be simply the heard. In the conceived, there will be simply the conceived. In the recognized, there will be simply the recognized. In all that, you will not be seen, heard, conceived, or recognized. If you are not seen, heard, conceived, or recognized, then you are not there. When you're not there, there's no you there or anywhere else. This is, in fact, the end of suffering. What this gives us is not just a blueprint for the process of awakening, but also a straightforward description of what life is like once awake. We will still see, hear, conceive, and recognize this and that. Daily life would be impossible without doing so. And yet, there will be the complete disappearance of the sense of me and I. Where we look for me is everywhere. In the passage above, what is seen and heard is shorthand for everything that happens in the sensory experience, which also includes what we smell, taste, touch, and think. We have certain conceptions about what we see or otherwise experience, as well as conceptions about what we don't see but only imagine. We also recognize, discern, or pick out this or that, such as a frying pan or a red light or an intersection by which we navigate daily life. And if we look closely, that is really all that is happening. We need only to be willing to see that there is no me and to simply look in the entirety of everyday experience to see it. Instead of learning a new skill, we just have to let go of beliefs and assumptions about who or what we are. That is how we're able to see there is no me, by which we will understand that what we see in everyday life isn't what it appears either. Focusing on the fact that there's no me also helps us to avoid any attempts to understand what exactly it is that we see, hear, conceive, or recognize. This is especially important if we approach awakening with the erroneous assumption that we will find and know the nature of reality, or that we will come to fully understand the way things are. In the end, all we can really say is that, for example, whatever is seen is in fact seen, and that while we can think about and interpret it in order to go about daily life, those are just ideas about what is seen. Fortunately, simply the seen is all that we need and all that we actually ever had to navigate daily life. Rather than discovering the way things really are, we simply realize the way I really am not. What is a fetter? A fetter might be described as an illusion, something that we infer or believe. It is a belief, view, or notion we have about the way things are and thus how we are. In fact, you could substitute the word illusion for every instant of the word fetter, and the meaning would likely be the same. For example, the first fetter or illusion has to do with the belief that there is a separate self which has and controls experience. Based on what is happening, it seems plausible and perhaps necessary that such a self exists. However, if we look closely, it is just a mirage, an illusion. Rather, it's simply an illusion. And if fetters were not illusions, we would never be rid of them. The breaking of fetters. In traditional terms, successfully working with a fetter is usually described as breaking it, meaning that both the belief and the underlying tendency to it evaporate. Whatever the term used, a quite thoroughgoing eradication is needed, by which both the belief and any possibility of it returning are no longer present. For example, it is one thing to see how the concept of a separate self is illusory, but another to go in and root out the underlying tendency to suppose that there nevertheless might be a self, such that we never think that way again. Truly, breaking a fetter is therefore an irreversible change, since without the underlying tendency towards a given belief, there is no way to once again adopt it. Given this fundamental change, it may be no surprise that we can know with certainty when a fetter is finally gone. After such a change, we can look back and see how it was the fetter or belief was so believable, and also know that we will never be fooled like that again. For example, upon breaking the first fetter, believing in a separate self is no longer possible. just as we cannot once again believe in Santa Claus once we know the truth. In other words, while we cannot deny that there is that which is seen, heard, conceived, or recognized, nowhere can an actual me of any sort be found. For example, we can raise our right hand and unmistakably know that occurs, and yet, is a self that made that happen also seen? This underscores that fact that the intent is not to come to an understanding of the way things are in an epistemological or ontological way, but to eliminate the assumption or belief that there is an I or me that is participating in what is happening right now. Also, rather than embarking on an examination geared towards convincing ourselves how there can't be, for example, a separate self, it is eventually seen that there is no such thing, and that is that. There is, of course, no one that sees this per se. It's simply seen. This typically results in an immediate and clear knowing that a fetter has been broken. Particularly with a more direct approach, there is a sharp before and after experience. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Ah. So in Buddhism, fetters are these mental chains. So think of chains. That the dictionary says manacles, I think handcuffs. That's something that's keeping a being trapped in the cycle of suffering. So the visual image of chains, manacles, it really for me connotates prison, right? Ball and chains, just something that's weighing me down and I just can't get away from it. That is what the belief in self, a belief in me is. It's a big old ball and chain that keeps me stuck and stuck in believing all these thoughts, stuck in believing that there is something that is controlling, that there is an I that controls the body movement, that there is an I that controls the future, that there is an I that controls thoughts. So the ministers get a announcement before the next quarter saying who would like to go ahead and lead a weekly gathering. So we got that about 6-8 weeks ago. And at that time in Self-Guided Awakening, which is an epilogue to Gentle Healing 3, so if you've been through Gentle Healing 3, Shauna's group who went through all the gentle healings, we created the Self-Guided Awakening, so after Gentle Healing 3. And about that time, we were asked, hey, who would like to give a talk or who would like to lead the gathering? We were just starting to talk about Kevin Shanelix and the Fetters. And that was with Shauna and Mary Dugan and Audrey. And I thought, well, I knew I was going to give a weekly gathering on this. And I thought everybody would be enamored because I am so enamored by this. And then, you know, I'm beginning to realize it's starting to set in that I'm having this realization that this talk is for me, to help me clarify what's going on and help me clarify the breaking of the fetters, and to help bring the realization just deeper and deeper and deeper. So thank you for allowing myself to keep moving away from the layers. So there's so many resources for Fetters if you're remotely interested. Angelo DeLulo has YouTube videos on the Fetters starting at Fetters 4 and 5. Glenda Cadbury introduced me to the Awakening curriculum, which was with Purnell and Tachi. Introduced me to this over a year ago. Kevin Shenelick has simplythescene.com, and he's been on interviews with Angelo. He's been on interviews with the Awakening curriculum. Christine Mickelberger, who is going to be on the Awakening Together song in October, is another resource. And one of my favorites, it's a YouTube station called The Buddhist Sympathizers. It's a dude by the name of Chris. He doesn't even have his name on there. He just mentioned his name one time in the video. And it's actually step-by-step experiential steps of how to break the fetters or the first fetter. So how do we actually release the concept of me? How do I realize that there is no self? And that's the breaking of the first fetter. So let's end suffering and delve a little deeper into this. So with the breaking of the first fetter, there's this understanding that there is no inherent self. So what does that actually mean? We understand the world through thoughts, through concepts, through language, right? We need thoughts and concepts of language to function. There is nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So I'm not going to get rid of thoughts, concepts, and language. It's how we move through the world. But part of the language is I, me, self, Sharon. Again, there's no problem with that. That's language. I, me, self, Sharon. But there is a belief, this deep-rooted belief that these words, I, me, self, Sharon, actually references something that is inherently real, meaning that there is a belief that thinks that I, me, Sharon, this I has control, that it's real. We believe it's more than a word. We believe that I, me, self, Sharon, put in your own name, is more than a concept. It's a belief. Oh my gosh. It's really simple when we think about it. It's a belief. The realization that the concept does not refer to anything. So we can have the concept, I, me, self, Sharon's a concept, but it doesn't refer to anything. Realizing that is breaking that first fetter. The concept is fine, and there is no need to let go of the concept, but to let go of the belief in the inherent self. So we say there's no self, there's nothing separate from anything else. So the breaking of the first fetter does not dismiss that there's a body, not at all. You know there's a body. You can't say there's not a body. You can't say the body's an illusion. The breaking of the first fetter says there's no separate self in the body, that there is no I controlling the body, that there's no me moving the body. It's just this body moving, just like simply the seen, simply the heard, simply the body moving. There is no inherent self in suffering. This is really cool. And there's no inherent self that isn't suffering. There is no inherent self. There is no self moving the body. There is no self not moving the body. There is no self. So again, there's no self seeing There is no self not seeing. There is no self, period. So in a lot of the teachings, the Fetter teachers uses the word inherent self, and I kind of, what does that mean? What does that mean? What really clicked for me is I kind of had a download, and when I started saying there's no more implied self. So these words, I, me, self, Sharon, imply that there's something real. Well, when that implication is proven not to be true, I can drop the belief in the self. It's not actually there. So there's no I that these senses, this hearing, touching, feeling, moving, appear to. There's no I that controls the body. There's no I that dictates thoughts and memories. So this I am looking, I'm hearing, I am tasting. This I am refers to that sense of self. I am refers back to this belief of a person. So let's look and see if a person actually exists. So I'm going to actually invite you. It's an exercise. It's an experiential exercise. So let's turn off our brains and let's look and see if we can actually find a person. Let's look and see if we can find an I. We're going to look at hearing. When we think about hearing, we think about a body that's doing the hearing, some sort of body, and that two, that there is something being heard. So let's find the self that's doing the hearing. Again, tune into what you're hearing right now. Anything, my voice, a sound of a fan. Listen to what is being heard. Now ask, who or what is hearing that sound? And then what can be found when there's no thought without thinking about it? Now we're going to have thoughts that come up and says, I am hearing. The ears are hearing. But I ask you, is there an I in what is being heard? Is there ears actually in what's being heard? You could hear it, so let go of the ears. It's simply the heard being heard. I am hearing. Can you find an I in the experience? Hearing. Is there an I in hearing? The I is inferred. It's implied. I might feel some tightness when I think about this I. You know, it's all crunched up and there's a sense of me. But when I really look into this crunched up sense of me and let this concept go, it's just hearing. The hearer will never be found in a herd. What's actually doing the hearing? Well, maybe it's my brain. That's a thought. No. Well, maybe it's my ears. No, that's an idea. It's the neurological input into my ears. That's a concept. So when these thoughts and concepts are let go of, and I'm just hearing, can I find an I? Nothing can be found in the hearing. The I doing the hearing is simply a belief. It's another belief. It's a concept. It cannot be found. It's simply the heard. So the reason I invited you to do this is because you must do the inquiry. You can't, it's not a thinking game. You must have the experience of no I. Thinking creates the inherent or the implied self. So step away from the thinking. Let's do this really quickly with our arms. I'm moving my hand. The hand is moving, right? And you can close your eyes if you want to, so you're not paying attention to all this visual stuff. I think I'm moving my hand. But can I find an I in the hand movement? No, the thought, my brain is telling my hand to move is a thought. I feel my hand moving. The I is a thought. Just go to that feeling. Hand moving. To me, this just blew my world wide open. This is another way of saying being in the now. This is another way of saying the gap, the stillness. And from here, it's just continual deepening. You could do it through the 10 fetters. We could deepen by following this gap that Angelo calls it, but being in the experience. It is the experience. I am the experience. I'm going to take that I am out. The experience is being experienced. Period. Thoughts are being thoughts. Period. I have no control. So the Buddhist teaching with Corinne read said, in the scene, there will simply be the scene. In the herd, there will simply be the herd. In the conceived, there will simply be the conceived. In the recognized, there will simply be the recognized. That is what we just did in the experience. In all of that, you will not be seen, heard, conceived, or recognized because you is a concept. It's inferred. It's make-believe. If you are not seen, heard, conceived, or recognized, then you are not there. When you are not there, there is no you there or anywhere else. This, in fact, is the end of suffering because we have no control. There is no I to have control. What Kevin says at the end of this is what this gives us is not just a blueprint for the process of awakening, but also a straightforward description of what life is like once we awaken. Just like we experienced. In the herd is just the herd. There is no I. There is no control. There is no back and forth. There is no push-pull. We will still see, we will still hear, we will still conceive and recognize. This in that daily life will be impossible to do so without the senses. So it's not saying there is no senses. There's not saying there is no seeing. It's simply stating there is no I seeing. And yet there will be a complete disappearance of the sense of me and I. And I just love this space. And I invite your hearts to open up, the stillness to open up, and the brain to let go, so that it is clearly seen there is no I, no control, and that there is simply the seen and simply the heard. Thank you so much. I am. So the song for our contemplation is Alicia Keys is playing a Moonlight Sonata. I invite everybody to use this technique that we were just using, of trying to drop the I, of realizing there is no I during this song. And also there's going to be a link if you would like to support Awakening Together, because we are only supported through generous donations. So again, please listen to the song. Please go back into the exercise, and then if you feel called to do so. Thank you, Marisol, for being our YouTube person. So we're going to do some sharing here, but I have to tell you something about Beethoven and Chopin. My dad had a duo hour player piano in our family room growing up. So it was one of 60 pianos in the world that actually played these piano rolls. It's a reproducer with the speed and the sound, the pianissimo fortes that is supposed to be played. And so we weren't allowed to play these rolls on there. But my favorite song was Chopin's Polonaise in A flat. And so I'm asking my mom, could I please put the Chopin Polonaise in A flat on? And she says, sure, you can get it if you know how to do it. So I'm all excited. She goes, go look for the roll. So I'm looking for Chopin Polonaise in A flat. Chopin supposed to be spelled Showpan. That's Chopin. And I'm looking, and I come back into the kitchen to my mom, and I said, the only Polonaise in A flat I can see in all these rolls, because my dad had a big wall of them, is Chopin. And she just started laughing, and she goes, Sharon, Chopin is actually Chopin. And I felt like really, and she goes, oh, don't feel wrong, because when your brother was looking for Moonlight Sonata, he couldn't find Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. He just kept finding Beethoven's. Moonlight Sonata. So whenever I see Beeth and Oven's, so when I see this, we played Moonlight Sonata today, and it was by Beeth and Oven. So we have 10 minutes to share. If anybody would like to have any contemplations or insights from today's talk, or anything else that might be going on for them. Yes, Melissa, thank you.
Thank you so much for opening my heart even more, opening the heart. The heart is opening. Um, really appreciate just one more layer of taking anything less personally and realizing that things are just doing themselves. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And Shauna?
Yes, thank you, my friend. That was the experiential part of it was just absolutely priceless. Thank you for leading us into that. And I'm just so blessed to have you walking this path together. One thing that I really wanted to emphasize, and I'll look at this also in my sacred inquiry today, is the mind will freak out with this. The mind will give you all kinds of answers. The mind will point to everything except what we're here for. The mind will circle in reorientation, trying to find something to land on. Just be aware of that. And what we're looking for is what's beyond that, not thought, what's actually here right now. And this is just so incredible once the breaking starts happening, where they starting to insight. Oh, I see it. Oh my God, it's right here. It's always been right here. And yet then the mind will come in and say, oh, I've done this wrong, or that's not it, or you need to keep looking, or you're not good enough to see it. All that stuff that mind does. Just know that's going to happen. I see you. I see you. That's not what I'm listening to now. What is actually here now? And it just makes me want to cry because I can feel the truth in it. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful journey. Shauna and I have been doing all this fun stuff for the last 3-4 years together, since we started, or she started Gentle Healing 1, and I was in her group. So thank you. And you are so right about what is actually here right now. And if I can describe it, I'm not here right now. And if I can process it, it's still one step away from the now. So what is now? What's being heard now? What's feeling now? Thank you. Absolutely. Does Kevin have a book? I do not think so. He does have the website. He has YouTube videos, and like I said, Angela DeLulo has him on his website also. Any other plots or contemplations? Yes, Miss Rhoda.
Good to see you, Miss Sharon. So good to be here with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking about the fetters. I noticed that what happens here is that the mind gets really curious about new things and excited about new things and wants to learn about new things. And what I found so poignantly in the direct experience that you kept pointing us back to was how that is more conceptual searching of the mind. There's like a, what I could feel was how similar that is to what happens each time I slow it down, each time I sit in silence, each time I stop long enough to actually watch thoughts as they occur. And it's such a helpful reminder to just sit and have the direct experience. I get so excited every time someone in the sanctuary goes, "Hey, let's try this direct experience thing right now." Because it is, for me at least, it feels like it's creating a new way of interfacing, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. A new, it's not it's breaking from old ways of believing. I think the I keep wanting to say barnacles, but it's not barnacles. Shackles.
Yeah.
Um,
Manacle or
man-
manacles, shackles, all in chain. I'm thinking prison, right?
exactly. It feels like that is that is the habit pattern. The manacles are the habit pattern. The shackles are the habit patterns. It's the thing from childhood that said, mommy says, these are your toes. These are my toes. Like that's the habit pattern that is not actually even being broken as much as it's just being seen for what it is. And so, the opportunity to just sit and not think about a concept anymore, just to be with what's being shown and pointed to is just such a gift. Thank you for doing that with us, Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda. I appreciate you and everything you do for Awakening Together. And and Rhoda touched on it too. It's really, really easy actually once I realize I don't need to think about this anymore. There is no thought or concept that is going to get me there. And as soon as that is seen and realized and accepted, to be able to be an experience now is phenomenal. It sparkles, it tingles. It's because experience is no longer running through this filter. And I say that experience is still being run through the filter, but the filter is not being paid, it is not being believed. The filter of the mind is no longer being thought of as, yes, that has control of it, or it's just not believed anymore. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything? Corinne, thank you so much for reading, my dear lady.
Well, thank you for asking me and giving me this challenge because it definitely was in this one's experience, which I know is not even real, but yeah, and the exercises and the colors behind you and your beautiful, joyful self, all of that helped to calm down this head pain that was there, and it's way much better now. And yeah, thank you for the exercises because I will definitely apply that and couple it with Regina's rest, accept, and trust. It's not that the pain doesn't have to be there, but it is detaching from who's experiencing the pain and seeing the truth in all of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So we are going, you're more than welcome to stay and for our weekly gathering afterwards. But we are going to listen to, it's the Pentatonics Hallelujah. And why did I choose Pentatonics versus the original? Because in a cappella, as everything keeps dropping out, eventually, if you have the one last voice drop out, it's complete silence. So I invite you to listen to the song. You could do your exercise with it and still enjoy it all at the same time. Make it an experience. Marisol, thank you so much. And I turn the mic over to Marisol.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.